Hey everyone, welcome back to Dev Dive, episode 8. It's been a while. Thanks for holding on to your podcast listening devices while you're waiting with bated breath for the next episode. I actually think it's been about 6 months now. I haven't actually looked, but I think it was probably the end of summer or something when we stopped, summer 2019. So it's definitely been a little bit of time. We're going to catch you guys up on what's been happening in our lives during that period of intermission and why Dev Died had to die, and now why it's back. But before we start, I want to wish I want to wish a very happy birthday to Larry and his wife, Vivi. They both had birthdays in the past month. 25 years old. Amazing. So
25 years old.
Both of you 25.
Yeah, we'll be perpetually 25 from here on out.
And you guys got a dog too, an adorable dog.
We did. We got a little mooch.
Have not
gotten to see if I can grab
yet.
her really quick.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
All right, let's see here. Mochi, come here, baby.
I'll keep the story up.
Come here.
Due to quarantine, I have not met Mochi yet, but
yeah. Come here, Mochi. Come on, baby. Yeah. You want to be stream famous? Want to be stream famous? Yeah.
Our audio listeners are loving this.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
look at her.
My goodness.
Look at her.
So cute.
Look at her, that little mooch. That's what we call a little moochster.
For those listening at home, Larry has just hoisted a very lovely dog to the stream.
All right, you can go back to laying down. Sorry for disturbing you.
Okay. Let's talk about what's been happening in our lives over the last 6 months or so. If you want, I can start, and then we can go to you.
I mean, I don't mind. I don't care. What has changed in your life significantly, Ben?
So I if you watched the video I posted to Twitter a couple of days ago, I sort of explained briefly about what has been going on, but I'll reiterate for those who haven't seen that. I got a job. I used to live in North Carolina. I have a job now in Los Angeles, sunny El Segundo. I moved out here about the end of December. It was a week and a half to drive out here. Got moved in, found a place in right before the end of December. So January, I started my job. I've been there for about 3-4 months now. I'm enjoying it. It's a little difficult right now because everyone's working from home and quarantine is fun. I'm sure we're going to have a lot to say about that over the course of this podcast. But got a job, moved to California. It's always been sort of a goal of mine, and I still wake up some mornings and don't really believe that I've done it, but I did it, and I'm hoping it's the start of a very successful and happy time here on this lovely city. So how about you, Larry? What have you been doing for the past 6 months?
Nothing. I've just been sitting here waiting for Dev Dive to start again.
Yeah, I think everyone has been, honestly.
See here, what happened over? So we had Christmas break. Still on the narrative team over at Riot. We got a dog. Big things for me, I guess. Career-wise, I'm making the switch over to the editorial team. Right now, I'm their resource manager, their producer, and I've been supporting the team that way. But over the past year and a couple months, I've been reevaluating what I want to do in the long run, where my skills lie, where my passions lie. So I've started the process of applying to the editorial discipline. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see where that shakes out. I'm still the producer for that team. Like, I'm still there helping them in that capacity, but I'm just taking the steps to do that. So I think that's the biggest difference so far.
In other words, you have had a meteoric rise at Riot. So you've just been shooting straight to the top.
Sure, we'll go with that. That sounds a lot better than what I said. So,
long story short, you're looking at the next CEO of Riot Games.
Yeah, we're about that.
All right. Transitioning the topic to, I think, the forefront of everyone's mind, quarantine and working from home. How has that been affecting you? Because I've got some stories about it.
You got some thoughts? You got
I got
some
some
thoughts about
thoughts.
that, Ben? I think it is an interesting time because it just shows that people are capable of being able to work from home. Like businesses, specifically, I should say, specifically within the tech industry or the entertainment industry. Like, I have a couple friends who are VFX artists. I have friends who are game developers, and it shows the flexibility of and also the state of our technology to be able to do the work that we would normally do in our homes than going to an office. Now, that being said, I still prefer going to an office. Like my work specifically is much easier whenever I can see people like face to face. I'm able to pick up on visual cues. I'm able to see how people are doing just from body language, stuff like that, and it helps me. And then also, I'm easily distracted at home. I'm like,
Yeah.
I have all of my little goodies and toys and projects here at home. So whenever I'm at work, I can focus on work, and when I'm home, I can focus on home. So my thoughts on it is, I personally don't like it because of just me, like in my personality. But when it comes to the actual act of working from home, I think a fully decentralized team can be just as successful as a centralized team. It just, I think we've talked about it too. It just depends on your mindset and certain concessions and different effort levels in different places. So,
Yeah.
yeah. What do you
Yeah.
think, Ben?
I've heard going to what you said about how you think that this is sort of like a proof of concept for showing that it is possible to work from home in the tech field.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a lot of discussion about this. We don't know where we'll go because obviously everything might change once quarantine's over. But a lot of people are saying that this could be the catalyst that spurs remote work being more than acceptable, being preferred for a lot of tech companies. Um,
Mm-hmm.
just because it's proven that a lot of these roles that people are in can be done from home without any loss of quality. Like for your role, you said you definitely don't prefer it because you lose out on a lot of that face to face contact. But there is other
Sure.
roles where people definitely don't need that or they don't prefer that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so it's going to be interesting to see how people can leverage this in the future when we aren't forced to be working from home. Um,
Yeah.
whether we see more remote and work from home capabilities for all the big companies out there. I think my company is going to be allowing a little bit more after this, at least for the first 2 months. We'll see. But yeah, so shifting over to my thoughts on it, um,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big fan, but I also kind of miss going to the office. Um, I
Yeah.
saved a lot of money eating at the office. We get free meals and there's food all over the office
Snacks and
basically.
stuff
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Snacks.
Yeah.
So I'm paying a lot more money for groceries and when I am too lazy to use groceries, I'm paying a lot more money to get delivery, which is ridiculously. You cannot pay less than $20 to get anything like delivered in LA.
Yeah.
Um and that's just like for like a few things. You're looking at like
Yeah.
$30 if you want something fancy.
Yep.
Um expensive. Other than that, my job, for those of you who don't know, I never really explained, I guess, what my job was. I'm a safety support specialist for GoGuardian, which is an educational technology company. Basically, the short and sweet version is that um, our role is to monitor sort of suicide and self harm alerts that come in from GoGuardian. And what GoGuardian does is they deploy monitoring software and filters to um, children's computers like Chromebooks and Windows machines that are supplied by schools. And we use the monitoring software to sort of um, detect when people may be under distress or may be at risk of suicide or self harm. And then we can reach out to those schools and help the kids get the help they need. And we've only been up and running for a couple months now, but we already have a lot of testimonies from school admins that this product has saved people's lives. So we're really excited about that. My role it's a very small role within that team, but I'm excited to be there and I'm excited to see if I can take that to something bigger within the company. So, getting back to working from home, monitoring alerts is something that can easily be done from my home office, as you can tell, which also doubles as my bedroom. So I haven't really missed any beats in terms of that. I just save some time because I don't have a car. I save some time going to work, and that's about it. So bittersweet work from home vibes. I'm personally enjoying it. I always liked being at home, but I know a lot of people in my
Man,
office are not enjoying it.
I think it's going to be interesting because one of the factors, because I was thinking about it when you were talking, I was like, yeah, like the proof of concept is the work can be done while someone's at home. I think the difficult part is maintaining team cohesion and team health from that interpersonal aspect, because that's been indicated in a lot of studies that's super important. If you want someone to perform and to perform well, you need to make them feel part of the team, to feel valued, to feel appreciated, and that's really hard to do when it's not like right there face to face. You can still do it, right? Again, and like I said before, it just takes more effort in different areas than it would to if you were to be face to face. So
Yeah.
yeah, having that decentralized team is super important for any sort of managers or leads to be hyper vigilant on making sure that people do feel that like they still feel connected when not being part of the like right there as part of the I can't say central because I said decentralized as part of the that face to face value in person.
Yeah. Something that our team has done, which I'm assuming is being mirrored a lot in the tech world, is we're doing daily video call stand-ups around the middle of our shifts, where we're talking about like what we've been doing that day, any issues that we were having, or any questions for the rest of the team, just so we don't like completely disconnect from everyone, because it's so easy to sit down on Slack and just be like, message somebody 5 words and then that be your entire conversation with anyone else on the team for the rest of the day. So personally, I mean, I like it. I'm not a huge fan of it when it just ends up being people trying to make it seem like they're doing more than they actually are, because they want to feel like they're justifying like they're
Yeah,
working from home. So
yeah,
they're like, oh, we're quantifying this and we're exemplaring that, and I'm just like, okay.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And I think that that's a real that's an issue too as well. You remember, people want to feel appreciated for the work that they do, and
Mhm.
not saying that this is the case, but just as a point hypothetically, it's like maybe that person is saying, hey, I'm doing a lot of work, but I'm not getting that feedback that I normally get of saying like, hey, good job, hey, we appreciate what the effort you're putting into it, stuff like that. And I think that's a culture shift. I think
Mhm.
that's definitely a culture shift that would need to happen before we see like I guess a recession of that kind of attitude or that kind of uh, uh, talk or work. It's also uh, the idea of how many meetings do you have to really be in to do your work effectively. Like, so my team, the narrative team, the narrative services team, I'm trying to be specific because if you say the narrative team at Riot, it can be like depend. Anyway, I won't get into it. But the narrative services team, the team that I specifically help, um, they are professionals. You give them their tasks, their projects, the proper information, and they're able to execute no problem. And very rarely do we have an issue when it comes to process or delivery. But that's because again, the writers and editors, they've done this for a while. They're professionals. It's more about like how we integrate with other teams that causes some issues. Now, this being work from home is interesting because we don't run into the same problems because the writers and editors now have time to be able to do the work that they needed to do and to do like that networking and that relationship management with those product teams, because they're not being asked to go to 5 different stand-ups on teams that they don't have updates for, like on a daily basis. Certain disciplines, they don't give you updates every day. Like illustration, the illustration team used to help out a lot with that. They would have thumbs, and then it would take them maybe a week for them to get colors, and then maybe another week after that to get like, you know, a first pass of polish and rendering. So like there be that, like those are 3 meetings for 15 days, but they're asked to go 15 days to these half-hour meetings. That's time. And if they're on multiple projects, there's multiple stand-ups. All of that to say, I think it's going to be another outcome of this is that reevaluation of just how important is it for everyone to be in the same meeting all the time, and that reevaluation of what does it mean to actually be in a meeting, and what is in what kind of information is important and who should be there and when. I think that's going to be an interesting shift as well.
Yeah, I think anyone who's listening to this and who's working from home in tech right now knows exactly how you feel, and really gets every single vibe that they're throwing off for that. So that's
right.
That's definitely something that I think I felt, and I've only been in this field for 4 months now. I can only imagine what it's like for people who have been working for 4 or 5 years, up to 10 years, or however long. Something I wanted to pivot to, and we can talk about this more later if you'd like. So this is obviously the most public aspect of how working from home has affected Riot, the LCS broadcast and how they handled that. And I think if you had any insight on that, or if you wanted to share insight on maybe a lesser public side from how working from home has affected how Riot games or what
sure
teams?
In general, I won't be able to share a whole lot. I can tell you the sentiment is very much like we want to make sure that first and foremost, people are safe. And by doing something that could contribute to someone getting sick or someone potentially contracting it and then further spreading it, like that was something that was very, very prevalent, right? That was something that a lot of people had on their minds. So that is the sentiment. First and foremost, we want people to be safe. And then from there, it goes, okay, well, there is still people, and this is me speaking from, what do you call it? Just from like my own personal thought of what I know about the LCS or any of the teams at Riot. It's okay, well, we have our main objective, keep people safe, don't contribute to the problem. So how do we continue to deliver the, you know, the product, the experience? How do we continue to deliver the thing that people are expecting of us, while still respecting that main sentiment? And I think that's what they've been trying to do. Everything at Riot is very much like iterative. Let's try that. Let's be informed. Let's find out, like, hey, what's the best approach? What's the best information that we can get? And let's do something towards that end. Let's put some time and thought into it. But at the same time, once it does go out, and if they get feedback where it's like, this is not actually doing what you think it's supposed to do, them pivoting and being able to continually improve or to adjust, I think is the other aspect of Riot teams that is admirable. So with the LCS stuff, I think that's what they're trying to do, specifically for the weekly broadcasts. I don't have much more in terms of like specific insights into that, but if it's something people are burning to know about, you know what I mean? I'm sure I could find someone to talk to, or
Real quick,
to get their thoughts on.
I think we lost your cam, but we can keep talking if it's not recoverable. So yeah, the next topic we had to talk about was how has quarantine affected your gaming habits, and I can take point on that while you troubleshoot.
No.
Gaming a lot. Are you?
I think. You. Am I? Oh, here, 1 second.
I've been gaming a lot more in terms of like casual gaming. I was never really one for. There you are. I was never really one for doing like games. I don't know. I've been playing a lot more games that don't require your full attention. Like beforehand, I would play a lot of League of Legends. I'd play a lot of StarCraft or something like that. Something that you can't really do anything else while you're doing it. And with work from home, I've really started to appreciate games that you can do as like a secondary action where you don't have to put your full focus on it. You can take a break from it for a second and come back afterwards. that has really shown its value to me over the past few months. I don't get the game as much as I was hoping. I still have to do a lot of work, but I definitely get to squeeze in a few things. I've been playing a little bit of Hearthstone Battlegrounds in between, in between shit. I can't
Am
talk
I
too much about
distracted?
it. No, just a little bit.
Okay. All right. Sorry. Here, I
Um,
had to get some dominoes so that the computer could breathe.
the computer
We're
needed
high
to see
tech here on
dominoes.
Depth Dive.
Yeah. Eventually, we'll have Larry with his own DSLR. We're gonna have a production crew with cue cards and teleprompters on the sides. But for right
And
now, it's the
telling Larry to
garage.
stop dickering around. Also,
Yeah.
can we take
So,
a second? Because I don't know what you were talking about. Can we take a second to say how swole Ben is looking?
man, I am losing swollenness by the day, and I'm terrified that we are not gonna get back to the gym before I like wither away until
Lose that maximum swollenness.
I am probably at 80% swollenness right now.
Okay. All right.
I went to the gym every single day after work
Uh-huh.
for the past 3 months until we had to stop going in. So I was like probably the biggest I've ever been. And now I'm really missing it. I'm doing home exercises, but like what can you really do at home compared to like going to the gym and lifting weights? I miss it. What about you? You work out a decent amount, right?
Used to. I stopped, I think, over the winter or something like that, but I forget when. But I have been meaning to get back into it. Yeah, I would mostly lift. Bruh.
You can tell by the tank top. You ever see that?
Yeah, right.
Weights going.
Man, I am a fat slob. I need to change that though.
Hey man, once we get back into it, let's do some group gym workouts somewhere.
We're gonna be accountability buddies.
Yeah. Do some sort of working out.
All right, I completely derailed the conversation you were having before. What were you talking about? I'm sorry.
To summarize, I was basically just saying, I've been gaming a lot more on things that you don't have to spend your entire brain on, which is very helpful when you're working from home. Because sometimes, you ever see like the fidget cubes or the fidget spinners where you just need to be doing something while you're working, just to keep you sane. It's sort of like that for me with the games I've been playing, just to keep me sane. What about you?
I've actually been watching more TV than playing games, but I have been playing Final Fantasy VII Remake. But no, I agree. I think those kind of games are really helpful. I think mobile games are going to see a big rise, like these little 5, because that's kind of like the cycle for a mobile game, right? They want you to play for a short amount of time, wait, and then come back. But yeah, in terms of gaming, man, I've been watching more TV, movies than gaming in and of itself.
Yeah, I blasted through all 6 seasons of Silicon Valley in less than a week.
Oh my god, Silicon Valley!
Yeah, it's a good show.
I need to watch that show. I need to watch it.
It's pretty funny.
Right.
Somebody just dropped something heavy outside. Oh yeah, that reminds me. Earthquake last night. That was my first earthquake that I experienced in there have been earthquakes while I've been here, but I've either missed them or been sleeping through them. So yeah, we had I think it was a 4.3 last night, which is fairly big. It's not massive or anything. I don't think it caused any major damage anywhere. But it was loud, and it was at 12:03 a.m. I was actually up doing some work, so I wasn't like asleep, but it probably would have woken me up if I was asleep. So that was exciting.
Yeah.
How many earthquakes have you've been here for 6 years now?
Almost. Yeah,
almost 6. How many big earthquakes have you been through while you've been here?
That I remember, like maybe 3. The one last night counting, because I actually noticed it, but like we've had, I don't know, 10, 12, 14, 100 earthquakes. I honestly don't remember how many, but I don't notice them. I thought I would be like, oh yeah, earthquakes all the time.
Yeah.
No, no, I think it was like 2 years before I noticed my first earthquake.
I wonder, everyone's been saying like this is the worst time for an earthquake to happen just because everyone's like locked down and supply chains are already under strain.
Yeah, maybe.
Really fingers crossed that nothing major goes on, because that's like the only real
Yeah.
natural disaster that does hit Los Angeles. We don't get hurricanes here. We don't get tornadoes here, really. I don't think. Tsunami, I
Wildfires.
guess. Yeah. Wildfires. Yeah. I guess
Yeah.
that is. I
Tsunami
haven't.
would be interesting.
Yeah, tsunami would be devastating, I imagine. Um, but
Yeah.
getting off the topic of mass destruction, natural disasters. um, yeah, gaming at home is fun. Gaming while you're working is less fun because you're still working.
Yeah.
um, so moving on to the next topic we had written down, you wanted to know what our thoughts are on remakes of games or movies. I don't have any strong feelings one way or another towards remaking games. I like when they bring games up to modern standards. And there's a lot of games that have come out in the past 20 years that I really wish have been brought forward, because you go back to try and play them and they just don't run, or they don't run well. The original Star Wars games on like Xbox, and I think they were on PS2 and GameCube as well. Like Star Wars Clone Wars, Star Wars Starfighter. I wish that somebody could remaster those, because those were games that I grew up playing a lot of. Like every day after school, you just sit down and you play that for like 6 years. What about you? What are your thoughts on remaking games?
Man, it's it's very dependent, right? Like the Final Fantasy VII, right? The remake we were just talking about, that I think is a really good example of an excellent remake. Like they took a game that was beloved, and they one, brought it up to modern standards, but then two, they went back and was like, okay, well, what worked well? Let's keep that, and then what didn't work so well, let's try to adjust that. Let's try to fix it. And fix it might not be the right word. More just massage it, or bring it up to standard. Because I remember playing Final Fantasy VII and going, I don't know what the story is about after disc one, because there's just so much going on, and the pacing of it was still a little kind of sloggy, right, for the story. But after I finished the game and went back and started reading about, it wasn't Wikipedia at the time, I don't think, but reading
Game
like forums
facts.
and stuff like that. Yeah, game facts. And like, oh, that was cool. And like, oh, did you notice this about this character and stuff? I was like, oh, this is really neat. That I realized just how much time and attention went into the world building and the story, but it was just the pacing was off, right? And I think with the remake, they did a lot to address that, because like I don't think like in the first one you don't really learn much about Sephiroth until way later. Like you know about him, but like you don't really get the importance of it, and like the relationship with Cloud and Tifa, and like these and then like Avalanche as a terrorist organization, right? Like a lot of the stuff just didn't come through. And then in this one, I'm like, oh damn, like no, this is much more resonant. This is much more much better crafted in terms of the story. So that's all a long way of saying, if you do it right, it's good. And I think when you do do it right, it's when you identify the things that made it special, the things that made it good, and try to preserve that, or at least the essence of that. And then what didn't work or what needed some adjusting, to address that, and then put it and repackage it. But I very rarely am excited about remakes of games or movies, because I'm like, why? Like why? For instance, the Lion King remake, the CG one. I'm like, people were like, oh, what'd you think of it? And people are like, oh, it's such a good movie. I'm like, of course it's a good movie. It's the
It's the
Lion
Lion
King. Like there's not much. It's a good, yes, of course, because they just told the same story. But I wasn't like blown away by it. The CG was impressive, but there was still something like that I missed from the old animated emotes and like the emotion and stuff like that they just didn't translate over to CG. But then you have something like what's the one that I watched recently? Like Aladdin, right? Or Sleeping Beauty, or not Sleeping Beauty, Beauty and the Beast. There you go.
Yeah, Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, I'm like, they tried, they kept what was good about it. They tried to capture the essence of the original story and what made it popular and a classic, a Disney classic. And then they tried to address the other points. I think Aladdin was more successful at doing that than Beauty and the Beast. And I'm very excited for Mulan.
Wait, they're making a live action Mulan? Oh yeah. No.
Yeah,
I knew this.
Yeah. But I'm excited about that because of it's the same idea. Like you have the story, because Mulan is an actual folktale in China, and like you're kind of learning from what made Mulan another classic, another successful Disney film, and then taking it forward. You're not just telling the same story again. So I'm excited to see it. We'll see if it's good or not, but I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, I think my thoughts on, I think my phone is actually ringing, but I'm not gonna worry about it.
It's not vibrating.
My thoughts on remaking movies is a little different from remaking games. I think if you want to remake a game, I think it should be remake, not remaster. I think it should be long enough after the fact that the original game has lost its sort of, not lost its shine, or it's lost the ability to really communicate what it's trying to communicate with modern audiences. So if I admit this, you might be massively disappointed with me. I've never actually played any Final Fantasy game, let alone Final Fantasy 7.
That's okay. We're never doing a dev dive again. Like, that's okay.
It's over. It's done. It's the last episode. From what I've seen, it looks like this has been pretty much not a genre change, but pretty much a completely new experience using the beats of the old story, which I think is the perfect example of what a remake should be. I don't disagree that remasters are good. I like remasters as well, because remasters is just bringing the experience of the first game up to modern standards without changing too much of like gameplay or visuals or anything. You just really updating it to be able to run on modern machines, and you're able to not be awful, because a lot of early games were terrible, and just in terms of gameplay, that's just how they ran, and that's just how they roll. So remasters are good. Remakes, I think, need to be a little bit wider in terms of like what they're changing to be acceptable. In terms of movies, I don't really know how I feel about it. I don't think I've seen that many remakes in my life, other than maybe the Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory remake.
Don't worry, they'll come. They'll show up.
They'll show up.
I was like you once. I was like you, young and naive.
Maybe it's just because I don't watch that many movies in general, but I don't care as much. I think that it's weirder to remake movies, though, considering that movies are probably one of the only art forms that don't change that much over the past 20. Like, you have to go back pretty far to
say 100 years of cinema, right?
Yeah. And like, if you watch what was one of the first Disney movies to come out, it was like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, right?
Feature length, one of the first,
yeah. That's still a watchable movie today, you would say, right?
Oh yeah, you could watch it,
yeah. But if you go back and play Pong or Tetris, you're really not gonna like have a very in-depth experience. Like Tetris, people can get into Tetris, but it's not gonna be the same as Battlefield 2085 or Final Fantasy 7 remake or whatever new games are coming out, Valorant or League of Legends or Overwatch. Or
Valorant.
Blah, blah. Valorant. Whoa, did you mention Valorant? Did you want to talk about Valorant?
What? No, what?
Valorant. The hit new game that's
the Twitch breaking game,
Yeah, sweeping the Twitch scene. Over 1,500,000 concurrent viewers at one point, I think I saw.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yep.
I've been playing a little bit, not as much as I thought I would. I'm just not very good at it. If I'm being
Same.
it's fun to play with people that you know are also not as good, because then you don't feel bad. But when you're
Yep.
playing with some of my friends are really, really good, or at least to me they're really, really good. So I'm going in and I'm playing like Sage or something, and I'm basically just, I maybe can trade once or twice, and I'm just like anchoring them. Doesn't feel as good. I
Man, it's the same.
definitely,
Like, oh, go ahead, but
I was just gonna say, I definitely don't feel like there's as much, at least to me, as much agency as there is in like a game like League, where you have the ability to maybe outplay your opponents, just because if you're not as mechanically good at them, maybe you can do something else to defeat them, like through macro or through strategy or something like that. And that's obviously coming from somebody who hasn't ever really put in much time into this genre of games. The only real FPSs I spent a lot of time playing were something like Battlefield or even further back, Combat Arms. So not really the same style of shooter that I'm in. So I'm definitely coming in as a layperson, but not as fun to me as I was hoping it would be. But I know a lot of people are massively
yeah.
enjoying it.
Man, it's one of those things. I feel the same way about when I started playing League. The being the person on the team that sucks, like hardcore, like you don't know the game and you feel like you're bringing everyone down. Like I feel the same way on Valorant as I do on League when that happens. And I think the big thing is to maybe point back to what you said, a different aspect or a different angle on that is I'm not a Twitch like reflex shooter person. And in Valorant, that's so important. It's not a skill that I have developed. But on League, you know, I played StarCraft, the third person, that isometric, semi-isometric third person view, you know, Diablo and all these things. So like those are all things that I have developed in my gaming repertoire, right? You know, like so I think the sentiment for me is the same, right? I don't know much about this game. I'm not good at the micro. I barely know what macro means for Valorant. I have to pick up very quickly what people are talking about. Like a game was like, he's in heaven. He's in heaven. And I'm like, no, he's alive. I'm looking at him right there. He's up in that loft. Oh, yeah. I'm dead. Right, like figuring out these maps and stuff. I think it's gonna go the same route as League though. Like the more I play it, the more I understand what's going on. I think I'll get better, but I don't think I'll ever, in terms of the macro. But I don't think I'll ever get that Twitch reaction shot down at all ever. I'm just so bad at it.
I think jumping off of what you said, this is maybe one of the reasons why I feel like it's different from League in terms of like your capabilities, where I feel like in League, even if you're not very good in terms of like either micro or macro, I feel like there's always characters that you can play that you at least can have fun and not just be stomped on all the time. There's always been easier champions in League to play. Coming in as like and I hope I don't offend any players out there if you play these champions, but a champion like Sona or Yumi or a Mumu in the jungle or Garen in the top lane, not historically very complex champions in terms of how difficult they are to play. And you can have a very good game on those champions and be very impactful to the team. I don't think there's really an equivalent to that in Valorant. And the reason I'm saying this is because there's actually a quote that one of the people in Valorant say, and I'm gonna get into that a little bit lower later about the quotes, because oh my goodness. There's a quote. He's like, "Don't worry if you cannot shoot somebody. There are other ways to be useful." I don't think that's really as true as what he's saying. I feel like that if you can't shoot somebody in Valorant, you're pretty useless. So
I can hear that.
That's my feeling.
That. Yeah. I mean, I agree. You know, League has 150 champions, right? Like there's something for someone, and to your point, the point of League is not necessarily to get the most kills or to kill everyone, right? There are other objectives and goals and different routes that you can take to achieve victory. With Valorant, I think it's weird. I view it as much more of a narrower, like like you said, if you can't shoot someone and kill them, you're kind of you know, like, so that skill, like the different skills that the characters have and stuff are a little more geared toward that tactical, set them up so that you can shoot them eventually, and kill them. So it's weird. I think it's narrower in its like, um, success. Like, you have to be able to shoot and kill them to win. But I think the mastery depth is still the same, for Valorant as it is on League, but just in a very completely different way. You know, like understanding, you know, the ebb and flow of the map, the different angles that you can cover, the ways to get there, the different abilities and how you can use them in different situations. And I don't know what the plans are, but I don't know if we're going to go the way of Overwatch, where you're going to start having more and more champions to play, or if it's just going to be more maps instead or something like that, like CS:GO. So
yeah, it will be interesting to see how the game grows in terms of content. I don't know, like, I don't personally know how much further you can go in terms of adding characters to the game. It does feel like there's a lot. Like, I know they're obviously, with the amount of people who are working Riot, there's obviously going to be so many ideas for new champions or new abilities or new so and so. They're never going to run out of anything to like do. They've been making champions for League, and every single one is new and unique. I don't know if they'll want to take that route. I feel like they've really solidified a lot of core abilities into this small set of people already, where a lot of them are vision denial through smoke bombs or gas or something like that, area zoning through gas bombs or smoke grenades or flame grenades,
stuff like that.
Yeah. And there's it doesn't really stray from that too far. You have a few outliers like Jet, who focuses a lot on mobility and just jumping around the map. You have Sage with her wall, which is sort of just like basically a smoke bomb that you can't walk through. Who else do you have? You have, well, yeah, of course, you have the one on everyone's minds, Raze, who is a little bit of an outlier in all sorts of aspects. But she did get adjusted today, I think. So hopefully she won't be quite as much of an outlier. But in general, it seems like a lot of the abilities that they wanted to focus on were, and I think they've said it a million times, less useful in terms of like killing people and more useful in terms of tactical. Yeah. So will they go more heroes with a bunch of different abilities? Maybe. I mean, who knows? But I think that I think we'll see changes to maps, like you said, either rotation or just addition, and maybe like changing up the guns a little bit, like adding guns or removing guns or doing something like that. I think it would be interesting to see. I personally never followed CS:GO or CS in general. So what has Counter-Strike really done over the past 25 years or whatever to really keep the game fresh?
I don't know, because I'm the same, right? But I think that speaks to how good a game CS:GO actually is. Like, you know, think about things like chess. You know, chess has been around for hundreds and hundreds of years, but you could also say, like, what has chess done to keep it fresh, right? It's that mastery, right? There's that level of mastery. It indexes really hard on that.
The chess devs have been seriously slacking. White has been OP for over 10,000 years, and they have not nerfed it yet. They get to go first. There's no balance there.
I think that goes to. I think it also speaks to the kind of games that get developed, the ones that have longevity, especially. Like, and we could probably talk about this actually in another dev dive. The idea of like esports being sports, right? Like dropping the E from esports, because take the idea of like rugby or soccer or you know, football, or sorry, you have football and then North American football for our international viewers, right? Football. Like, you could ask the same question of like, what have they done? Like, yeah, sure, there are certain rule and foul changes and stuff like that, but the core mechanics of the game are the same. You put the ball in the hole, right? You know, like it's straightforward. So they really index hard on the mastery. Could you imagine trying to have like a seasonal rotation of stuff that goes on in a basketball game.
This season, scoring from the 3-point line is not worth 8 points, and also you get a free throw. Have at it, guys.
Hey there, NBA fans. We're gonna go through the patch notes on this season.
Every third member of the audience gets 1 free ping pong ball to throw at members of the team.
Yeah.
And if it's a game by EA, they get to pay for ping pong balls.
Oh, no.
Sorry, Lincoln.
Yeah, man.
That's an excellent point. I never really thought about that. The traditional sports have not really done any major, and there are rule updates, but they're not really making like major changes to how the game is being played. So it's not out of the ordinary to expect that you can actually transition esports into that role as well, like not having a ever-changing game. And I think it's just because we've been playing League for so damn long, 10 years now, that it has to be updated to be fresh idea is really just stuck in my mind. So maybe that will change when we see more games like that.
I think with League that's an outlier, right? Like like you said, it needs to be updated to remain fresh, to draw that interest, to remain modern and current. But that's League, right? The intricacies of the game, the way you want to balance it, the goals of it, that it requires that kind of maintenance. Whereas certain games, they don't. CSGO, right? Like king of tactical FPS, like for so long, and it's because their core game is that solid. Their core mechanic is that solid. So they have to look at other ways of trying. Do you hear my dog?
Do you have a critic?
Sorry.
She disagrees.
Yeah, she strongly disagrees. Don't you? Yeah. But yeah, it's just that they have to find different ways to keep it modern or current or up to date. So I have mad respect for anyone who's able to, like, look, if you make a game and it's popular for a year, hell, I'll even nix that. Like, if it's popular for any amount of time, congratulations. Like that is a feat. That is something that you've accomplished that multiple people never have or never will. So I would never throw like shade at a game developer or a studio that brings out a hit game, even if it does eventually go to the background. For me, I think that that's a real, what do you call it, possibility. I think everyone at Riot or on the League team is like, yeah, it's a possibility. We understand. Like they're not so arrogant to think like League of Legends will be the most prevalent game ever. They're going to do everything they can to keep it up there, right? They're not going to slack off. They're not just be like, oh well, entropy, right? And I think they're going to put a lot of time and dedication into it. But there is that background thought of like, hey, times change, tastes change. We're going to do everything we can to change with the times, but nothing is certain. Baseball used to be the number one, like that used to be the American sport. I mean, it's still around. It's still around, but
I think football has definitely surpassed it in terms of
So it's that idea of keeping that drive there is going to be really important.
And it's definitely a testament to how well Riot has done to maintain their keeping the game fresh and keeping it playable. And there's obviously a lot of critics towards game balance, and there's always going to be people who are upset about game balance for every single game ever. That's just how game balance is. But generally speaking, League of Legends has been one of the top played games of all time for the past 10 years, which is incredible. I don't think any other company has really, other than maybe Valve, has really achieved any sort of level of success like that. And it's like the people who are working on League are obviously ridiculously passionate, ridiculously hardworking to keep it at that level. And it's going to be super interesting to see how they can transition that into putting the same level of work and passion into other games like Valorant or Legends of Runeterra or unannounced project number 32 with Blitzcrank or whatever it's called. And that's why everyone's been waiting so long for Riot to make more games, and now they're finally doing it, and they look pretty good so far. So
I would say That's the hope, right?
We talked a lot about that. Did we miss anything? Was there anything more that we wanted to talk about for Valorant?
I don't know. I'm excited to see what people think of it. You know, when it goes full, like it's closed beta currently, but when it goes
Yeah.
full open beta, I'm really. I do want to say though, don't be dicks. Like, I'm just so surprised at how often that happens. Like, I'll probably get targeted for it, but God, I hate it whenever I log into a game and someone's just automatically an asshole. Like it really throws me off, and I understand. Like, I try to take that approach of like, you know, they're probably they're that way for a reason. But the other part of me is like, man, I just want to enjoy this game. You enjoy this game. You enjoy playing this game. You enjoy playing it with other people, because if you didn't have other people, you wouldn't play this game, right? Like weird circular logic. I'm just like, man, like why don't be an asshole, man. People just want to play the game. People just want to enjoy it. You know, it try to lean into that altruistic community center of our brain as humans. It's like, if someone comes in and has an awful experience, it really does color that like anything associated with that for a while. Like
Yeah.
there is that idea of like, oh well, there's no consequence to what I'm doing. I'm like, well, sure, there's no immediate consequence to you telling someone to kill themselves and, you know, bashing them for their play and whatever, but like that, there's no consequence right then and there. But over time, that could have very damaging effects, not only on the person that you're telling it to, but the community. The like, do you remember for a while League was just like, everyone's like, don't play League, it's toxic as hell. Like, why would I ever play that game? Like, everyone's fucking, you know,
Yeah. That
assholes, right?
sentiment still echoes throughout the internet for people
Lingers,
who
yeah.
don't. Yeah. And that's definitely like one of the legacies of online gaming in general, and League specifically. Toxicity. And I think that it's improved. I think that it would be silly to say that if you go back 10 years and you look at what was being done, it's definitely gotten better, but it's going to be hard to get rid of it, especially. And for games that and I'll let you finish right after this. I just want to say, for games that have such a high level of devotion and attention and engagement, it is so much easier to be upset and to share that upsetness with the rest of your team, or the enemy team, in a game like that, than it is for a game like without as much engagement. I'm not gonna name names to really make anyone's game sound less important, but it's when emotions run ridiculously high in a game like League and Valorant and other high-paced online video games, just because it's so engaging that when you do have a bad experience, it reverberates off of you, and you want to like spread that. I don't think anyone has played a game like League. The nicest people I've ever met have played League and have had a bad time, and they don't necessarily spread it to people through public channels, but they will get frustrated and they'll have a bad night and they'll log off angry, and then the next day they come back, they're fine. But it's very hard not to get affected by that one way or the other. And it's sort of like a negative reinforcement cycle. Like, the more that it happens in the community, the more that it happens, because it gets bottled up and it just spreads. But it is encouraging that it's gotten better, not worse, which is nice.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. I think a lot of people hear like it's whenever people like, don't be toxic, they think well, this is an assumption of mine. It's like, oh well, like, you're telling me not to get mad, or you're telling me not to, you know, be frustrated or whatever. It's like, no. Like, you could be frustrated, like you said, passionate, right? Like these games draw a lot of passion out of people, and that's awesome. That's great. You being passionate about wanting to do well, want to be competitive, want to drive and want to strive for greatness. That's great. That's motivation, and that's something that we would never want to lose. You lose that, you start losing what makes that a competition, what makes it unique in the realm of games. But what we're saying is there's a big difference between disappointed and berating somebody for doing something that you don't agree with, right? Like there is, I would not even say there's a fine line. There's a very distinct line between being frustrated and being toxic. Being frustrated, that's okay. Being angry or upset, that's okay. Being toxic, something completely different. It's a whole nother level. That's not okay. That's a great failing on not only of yourself, but what you spread around. I'm trying to think of, but like that community, you know, like it doesn't just affect you, it affects everyone around you.
And I think it's easy to look at aspects of online gaming and see like, and it's not going to be like the primary cause, because I don't think there's a primary cause for any of it. But looking at culture in terms of content creation right now, you can definitely look at that and see that it's playing a role in this sort of toxicity. When you look at a lot of the very famous streamers for League of Legends or for Valorant or whatever games, where they have this sort of mindset where if somebody's playing badly, it's because they're not as good at the game as they are, or they're intentionally trolling, or they're just dumb or stupid or something like that. And a lot of the times they don't share it in the game themselves. Like they're not telling them to their face, but they share it with their viewers. And that's like, it's not directly affecting the person because they don't actually hear it. But when you're sharing that sentiment with your viewers and then they all start echoing that sentiment because everyone wants to be like the Twitch streamer, they don't have the viewers don't have people watching them to share it with. So they end up sharing it with the people in the games they're with. So every single Twitch streamer that goes out and says, "Oh my God, this guy's garbage trash who shouldn't be playing League of Legends. He should have just gotten out and jumped off a bus this morning," but he doesn't say it in the game. There's 100,000 people watching them that are putting that into the game chat because they don't have anyone to share it with. They want to share it with somebody because they're upset and they're toxic and they're mad, but they don't have the echo chamber of their communities to share it with. So it's really disappointing to see a lot of the top content creators be these people who regularly, not just one-off times, regularly have that attitude towards something that they obviously have great passion for and have spent a lot of time and hundreds of thousands of hours studying, playing, and making content for. And then they're just so incredibly negative and so incredibly angry all of the time about it. And it's like I said earlier, it's just like a cycle. They share that, and then it gives them positive reinforcement because obviously they're very successful. They're making millions of dollars. They're influencing hundreds of thousands of people. So why would you stop doing that? Like, why? What is the incentive to not be that person? There is none. And that's my theory, at least, on like why we see a lot more of that on the content sphere these days. Because I feel like back in the day, you never really saw that sort of angle for at least League content. There wasn't really a lot of negativity out there, but I feel like recently, over the past few years, we've seen a lot more of that. Sorry, I might have totally off-railed your topics, but
I think it's a fair point. I mean, I don't agree with all of it, right? Like, but that I don't think that you're wrong. You know what I mean? I think that like one of those things people say, you hear boomers, you'll hear old people or generational people say like, man, the world's so much more fucked up now than it was 50 years ago. And I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure the world was as fucked up as it was now. Like, I don't think that has changed. Humanity in general is pretty fucked up group of beings. I think the difference is just you're aware of it now. Like, there are horrific stories of people doing things in communities that rival the things that happen today. But guess what? You didn't hear about it because it was just the local news back then.
Mhm.
Now it's, worldwide. Everyone can see it. So I think that is all, like, my contribution to that is, like, I think that the interconnectedness of content creation now, it's
Yeah.
starting to end the way, like YouTube algorithms and like information, the way it's kind of fed towards you and stuff like that. I think it's really important for people to remember that is the way our systems are set up currently. It wants you to be engaged. So it thinks, oh, you're engaging in this content, so I will give you more of this content, whether it's intentional or unintentional. I think that it's important to remember, like, hey, take a step back, go try to find something that you don't agree with, right? Like, go find an article like a good article. Don't go and just like find the first one from a fucking Karen and be like, it's stupid, right? So actually put the same amount of time and effort that you would put in to try to prove your own point, disprove it, right? Go out there and find that good information. Because if your logic and your argument is good and solid, then it'll hold up. And then if it doesn't, then maybe you have something to think about. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. And I really love that point that you made, where everything being more interconnected has definitely contributed to more people being aware of like what's going on. Because I didn't really think about that. Maybe 5-10 years ago, I'll make a statement and you can tell me if this is in line with what you think.
Okay.
Do you think today, the people who are successful and popular in League of Legends or in content creation are popular for more people than they were 5 years ago? Like to reiterate what I'm trying to say, because it's all over the place. I feel like there was more pockets of content creators doing different things and having their own individual fandoms doing those different things before than there is now. Like, not everyone knew this YouTuber in that field, but they were popular in their own right. And now I feel like everybody knows who I Will Dominate is. Everyone knows who LS is. Everyone knows who Tyler One is. I don't feel like there's those individualized communities anymore. I feel like everyone has like they just have a piece of everything now.
Oh, I got you. No, I can agree with that statement. I think that's also just kind of how markets develop, how communities develop. Like, you're gonna have people who started years ago doing this, little, like, oh, this is just my project that I do. And the more that they do it, the more people watch, the more they're able to support themselves, the more they do it, the more, like, it grows. Well, eventually you're going to hit a point where it makes sense to, hey, I'm gonna collaborate with this person over here who has the same level of notoriety and I dig what they're doing. So you start getting these contamination's not right, but cross promotional. There you go. I'll get there. That cross promotional kind of collaboration that then starts, oh, well, I know I've never watched I Will Dominate, but he was on this stream over here that I do watch. And that was kind of a cool thing. Well, now I have something else whenever my stream isn't on that I can go check out. It's kind of like having like TV channels, right? Back in the day, there was like 3 TV channels, and and you would watch but the choices continue to grow and continue to grow. I think that's what makes it so difficult for if you're a content creator and you're watching this or listening to this. It's going to be a slog. It's going to be hard. You got to put in the work, because the people who are big now, like, there are a couple cases, maybe they had a fan base or a following or some help, or definitely had some help, but they still had to put in the work, and that didn't pay off for years, right? Like, you have to really know and understand the market and who you're creating for. So don't be fooled by the, oh, well, they just make silly videos or they do that. No, it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of hard work. But no, I agree with your original statement that I think it started off as little pockets, and then nowadays, since there have been more pockets developed, that it's just, it's hard to go anywhere without bumping into somebody that you may know or want to collaborate with, and then that propagates more, then that propagates more. Like fucking Ninja, look at Ninja, right? He had one game with Drake. right? Not
And
saying that
now,
he wasn't successful in his own right. Like he was massively successful. And then he got someone in that had a bigger market share, a different viewership, and that just right like took it to a whole nother level. It's the same idea, you know. For instance, if we you know are doing dev dive and then we slowly build it up to where, hey, you know what, like let's talk to this podcast over here, or this group of people over here that have a different viewership or a different audience, and then you know through that collaboration we get a little bigger. Well, yeah, then we're able to reach more people, which then bigger collaboration opportunities and so on and so forth. But it just takes time. You can't just do it overnight.
Yeah. And I think coming back a little bit to where we were talking about how things are more interconnected now, it's very easy to see it might not be the cause. It might be more of a symptom than a cause, but the sort of Reddit idea where all the best content from all over the internet is aggregated in one place, and that is it. You are not, if it's not on Reddit, it's not good. Yeah, the mindset that some people have. And I think that's why we have a lot more cross promotion these days than maybe what we had 5-10 years ago. Reddit's always been a very big site, but now it is the third most popular site on the whole internet, or on the whole English speaking internet at least.
Remember the days of Dig?
Yeah, and it drives a lot of traffic. Personally, I'm involved with Reddit quite a bit. One of the subreddits that I'm involved with, we drive, I think, over 250 million unique hits every month, or something similar to that, which is ridiculous. And tangenting off that, the percentage of people who use Reddit as a user in terms of their making content or commenting on content is so fractional. It is less than 1% to the people who are just viewing Reddit as they call it lurking.
Passively.
You're not contributing anything. You're just using it to receive information.
I'm a lurker. Yeah.
there's I mean, you are in the very, 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 very massive majority there. And it's definitely interesting because it is literally the definition of a vocal minority, where you have such a small percentage of the entire audience dictating the entire conversation, because your opinion never gets shared by you. You don't share your opinion, so it's not there. If you have a different opinion from somebody, and we can go on for hours. It's not the topic for this podcast. We can go on for hours on why.
Put that down as a note for another one.
We can go for hours on how the voting system encourages echo chambers and how subreddits themselves encourage echo chambers. That's I mean, everyone's talked about that for years and years and years. Not worth going over now, but
rehashing, right?
Yeah. I'll just real quickly, I'll make the blanket statement TLDR, and then we can move on to whatever we have next. We lost your cam again. And then I think that we're probably close to wrapping up. I think we don't have much else to talk about.
My laptop likes to close Discord for some reason.
Yes, I would like to close Discord too, honestly. No. Reddit, the TLDR is Reddit and websites like Reddit have driven so much traffic that they are starting to be the only ways to really drive traffic in any meaningful way to newer content creators and to content creators in general. So that's why you see a lot more of the same ideas showing up, or the same mental processes, mental thoughts, the same personalities being popular. Because if the majority of people find it popular, then it will be the only opinion or the only state of mind on the platform, just because of how it works. That was a lot of talking about Reddit. Did you have anything to add?
No, I think that's a very good point, Ben. I agree with you.
All right. Do we have anything else on the list? I think we covered most of our topics. Did you have anything you wanted to talk about that wasn't on the list?
No, I don't think so. Oh, well, there is that thing about like accountability buddies. What like, I don't know if we want to share what projects we're working on.
Oh, uh, I can talk
Like
a
I just
little
do.
bit.
I got you. I was like, I just do hobby stuff and then weightlifting. So, like,
Okay,
I
okay.
need to lose weight
Let's
and paint better.
let's. Oh yeah, because you do like Warhammer stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Someday we'll have to take a picture of your office, and post it to Twitter or
Oh,
something,
sure.
because I went over to Larry's house a couple months ago, and he has an amazing office. He and Vivi both have like a ton of figure collections. They have great display cases, like of action. I guess action figures, not the figurines. What's the correct term?
You can call it figures. Yeah, yeah.
Figures. I never
Yeah,
really
yeah.
was into that sort of thing, so I never really had the Mochi's saying time to go.
Yep.
I never
Yep.
had the exposure to that. My brother did a little bit, but I never too much. So seeing somebody who has like a great passion for it and collecting like that, it was pretty cool to see like all of the different things that you've collected from, and seeing all this figures. So we'll try to find a picture of that eventually and post that.
Yeah. Yeah. Vivi has a much more impressive figure collection than I do. But that's what she focuses on figures. I have like little odds and ends. Like I got like a Game Boy like brick that I bought recently because that's one of the first consoles I ever really actually had. I have like my Yu-Gi-Oh, like 3 of my Yu-Gi-Oh cards, like when I played Yu-Gi-Oh in high school, middle school, whatever. I have a Pokemon card. Yeah, you gotta save. You can save that. Like little things like that. Most of the stuff is just things to remind me of my childhood and things that made me happy. Actually, one of them is I call it my wall of happy. But
I actually have a binder full of, not here, back in North Carolina. I have a binder full of Pokemon cards, and they weren't mine.
yeah,
They were my older
okay.
brother's, and he just sort of like he didn't care about them anymore. So I absorbed them.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
I never played Pokemon really, as not the game. I played a lot of Pokemon the game. I never played Pokemon the trading card game, but I had a lot of cards. Yeah. Other than that, hobbies that I've been working on, honestly, haven't found a lot of time to do stuff outside gaming and outside my work. I've been biking a little bit, but not so much right now. I wanted to get back into the longboarding, but honestly, LA is not a great longboarding city from what I've seen, at least my area.
I think you have to. Yeah, you're gonna have to hit the right areas.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. Cool. Well, what are your goals with the weight loss? Like, you want to get swole, right? Let's do some fucking push-ups and stuff. Come on, bruh.
I guess my goal. I've always been incredibly skinny, like a very, very, very skinny person. I recently hit my highest weight ever of 155, and it's mostly muscle. So I was really happy about that. I don't know what I'm at now.
Drink a milkshake. Just drink a milkshake after every meal. You'll fucking pack on the pounds. I guarantee it.
I can't say I have a specific goal in terms of like what I want to be when I work out. I just like, I don't know. I'm a person who has a lot of struggles with staying energized, and I like a lot. I can sleep a lot, and I can just not do anything for a lot of the time. So I really wanted to, yeah, I wanted to see if working out would like help with that, and it kind of did, but I still sleep a lot. I have no idea if that's like a health thing or if it's just like how I work. Who knows?
Yeah, you never know. It's all right.
You don't know until you try.
That's right. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm like I said, I'm trying to figure. I started looking up body weight exercises so that I can just do some at home. And then I'm working on the miniature stuff. I'm trying to get better at painting. I got a whole bunch of sculpting materials so I can start doing basing for those miniatures. Yeah, trying to write more, do D&D stuff. But I'm trying to think of what I can commit to the next. You know what I'm going to commit to? I'm going to have it, and I'm going to show it off. I'm going to have one of the miniatures that I'm painting right now. I'll have it done and completed by our next dev dive. How about that?
We'll show it on the video.
We'll show it off. Yeah.
That's a incentive to come to the live or watch the YouTube. I guess I'll be uploading this to YouTube as well. Watch the video version of this podcast. I know a lot of people just like listening to the podcast, and that's like primarily how most people do podcasts, but hey, the visual aspect is pretty cool. This is the first time I never really said this. This is the first time we have Larry on camera now. Hopefully,
and now you
this will
can see
become...
why I didn't do cameras really for the most part.
I'm very excited about that. I hope we can if we do get guests on in the future, I hope we can get them on camera as well. I know it's going to be a tougher sell for that.
Yeah, maybe.
But that's something that I'm excited about. So, other than that, I think we're about ready to wrap up. It's been about an hour and 10 minutes, so a little shorter than our normal episodes, but we didn't want this to be too long just because it's a getting back into it sort of thing, stretching our podcasting muscles.
Yeah.
Anything you wanted to reiterate before we do our closing segments?
Oh man, just be safe, have fun, making choices.
Yeah, be safe, especially right now. It's a very hard time. We're very privileged to be part of the people who are still able to work during this time. So we haven't had to struggle with trying to get unemployment or trying to get a different job. So I'm very thankful for that. If you are struggling with that, more power to you. I know it's rough right now. Hopefully the unemployment and the stimulus check has helped you. And I really hope my hearts goes out to all the people who are working right now in like grocery stores and people who can't really take time off or can't get sick because they need that income. So keep trucking, guys. It's hard. I've been there. I used to work retail. I used to work some pretty crappy jobs. So I think everyone knows what you're going through, and they know that it's super difficult. Don't let it get to you. Hopefully we'll get through this soon.
Let's hope our government comes up with some better solutions than just what they've come up with so far.
Yeah. Other than that, look forward to more episodes of Dev Dive coming up.
Sure, right there.
Hopefully we'll see some future episodes. I think something. I don't know if we'll be able to do the weekly cadence. I'm just gonna hold it. I don't know if we'll be able to do the weekly cadence of having a podcast every week, just because of how me and Larry's schedules coincide. It's something that we'd like to do. We haven't ruled it out yet, but we'll just to see like what happens. I think the minimum of what we do is like maybe once every 2 weeks. So keep an eye out for that. We'll be trying to look for guests to come on. We haven't lined up anyone yet, but I have some ideas in the background. And it might actually be more possible now that everyone's sort of like working from home. They might have a more free time to come on a show like this. So if you have anyone that you want to see on the podcast, tweet us at DevDivePodcast or join the Discord at discord.gg/Nighthawk and let us know, because we'd love to have some people on. Other than that, follow Larry on Twitter at Riot LegendLarry. He posts a lot of cool stuff. I know he posts. You're still doing the champion like bio stuff, right? Yeah, today.
I haven't posted one in a while. I'm still trying to get back into the swing of it, but yep. I will randomly tweet out fun lore facts about League of Legends.
Yeah. Other than that, just keep looking for Dev Dive stuff if you enjoy it. We'll be making some improvements to the format. Hopefully we get a little bit better at communicating and making the podcast good. Please bear with us for the first few episodes. It's going to be hard getting the energy and the time and the know-with-all to really drive these episodes. So other than that, I've been rambling forever. Have a great day, guys. Hope you enjoyed the show, and it's good to be back.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.